Like I said in the 5 reasons why Fallout 76 isn't bad video, there's some things in Fallout 76 that aren't good, and some things that actively make the game worse in my opinion. Things that are frustrating, silly, and boring exist in the game, and that sucks. Today, let's go over 5 reasons why Fallout 76 isn't that good. Before I begin, I'm not going to touch on the microtransactions and monetization of the game. Although I disagree with the practice of adding microtransactions to games that aren't free to play, it's apparent that after many years of publishers adding additional ways to monetize their already AAA price tag games, notably EA, Activision, Ubisoft, and others, that this practice isn't going anywhere and it's here to stay. With that little blurb out of the way, let's begin. Bad launch. It's no surprise that Fallout 76 had one of the worst launches in recent gaming history, up there with the likes of No Man's Sky, Anthem, Duke Nukem Forever, and Cyberpunk. Technical errors plagued the game's release. Some big brain gamers found ways to exploit this, leading to item dupes and access to the developer room. A wave of bans hit these hackers, but it also hit those who used mods to fix technical issues and texture mods, leaving some in the player base feeling ostracized by the developers. Mods have been a staple of Fallout and even Bethesda titles for years. Not being able to use texture mods and overhauls felt pretty crummy. The mass duplication of items led to online marketplaces where people would sell items. Then this led to a group of in-game vigilantes who would hunt suspected item dupers, sometimes leading to false positives and innocent people being targeted. And all this is just what happened in-game. Outside of the game, people were sold plastic bottle coverings when they were promised glass bottles. What was supposed to be a canvas bag turned out to be nylon. Helmets had mold. How on earth does any of this happen? It's unheard of. The sheer number of issues even led to this quote from the man himself, Todd Howard, in 2021. When Fallout 76 launched, the litany of issues we let a lot of people down. There was very little we didn't screw up, honestly. Although the game received positive reviews upon its Steam launch in 2020, and still touts positive Steam reviews, the 1.5 years between that and its launch were brutal for much of the player base, causing many to quit. Gameplay mechanic limitations. There are several arbitrary gameplay mechanic limitations that are new to the Fallout series. For example, there are daily limitations on just about every major currency in the game. You're prevented from earning over a certain amount of currency each day. This practice, which is used in some other online games, is to keep you coming back every day to play. As far as I know, the current currency limitations are as follows. You can make a daily maximum of 1400 caps from selling items to vendors. You can acquire a maximum of 300 legendary script daily from exchanging unwanted legendary items. And you can acquire a maximum of 400 gold bullion every day. There's also a cap on your storage space. Honestly, to me, this one is the worst. It really sucks when you finish a concrete, lead, or steel farming run, get back to your stash, and realize you're over capacity. Now that I think about it though, maybe it's a good thing. It's stopping my bad hoarding habit. Now instead of just hoarding 47 frag grenades, I just toss them. But seriously, it's a pretty frustrating limitation. I understand that things like currency limitations are used to maintain a healthy in-game economy, and the stash limitations are there to prevent botters, real money traders, and grinders from spending all day farming materials, but this is such a drastic change from past Fallout titles that it just feels bad if you're a fan of the franchise. We're not done yet though. There are some other quality of life changes that I believe should have been implemented by now. Things like cooperative story progression or even the ammo converter system need improvements. The game is entirely cooperative, yes, but some story moments are instanced, and while your team can follow along in your storied instance, the progress made doesn't count towards their story. So the best way around it is to play as a party for the main story quests, but then when they're instanced interiors like the Wayward for example, each party member should complete that solo. This sucks, and it puts a bit of a damper on the co-op experience, making the game feel less fluid. And then there's this small one, but something that, to me, is just annoying, unintuitive, and for lack of a better word, lame, and that is the ammo converter. The ammo converter is a camp item where you can input your unused item that gets converted to ammo points, which can then be converted into ammo for weapons that you do use. In theory, it's great. No more hoarding flamer fuel when you use rifles. But the amount of restrictive menus you have to go through to do it makes the entire workshop object so undesirable. If you need ammo, it's better to just run events, daily ops, or craft ammo from a bench. While being annoyed with a single camp object may seem like a small gripe to have, I think it's a good example that highlights 76 general flaws when it comes to development. The ideas are great, but the implementation is poor. The unpolished nature of the game and lack of traditional Fallout features leaves a bad taste in the mouths of fans. This leads me to another smallish gripe that, if changed, in my opinion, would make an overall improvement to the game. No offline mode. The most common gripe... No, I've said gripe too much. How about whinge? The most common whinge I've seen with the game online that I personally agree with is the lack of an offline mode. I think this can be applied to other games as well, but we'll stick to 76. There are a bunch of reasons why this would be appreciated. One, to avoid griefing. Although in my many hours of the game, I think I've only been griefed twice. but also to just not deal with the hassle of online connectivity issues and server restrictions. I understand that this would remove core mechanics from the game like teamed events, shared economy, player trading, etc., and the infrastructure for a mode like this might not exist, but it sure would have been appreciated. Even if it's just a private server with events turned off, I believe that some would appreciate that. I know that Fallout First offers private worlds, but no one wants to pay $100 a year to play solo, and it would still be online anyway, so what's the point? I think a sizable amount of people, including myself, would like an option to explore Appalachia solo and offline. Looter, shooter, grind. Grinding can be good, grinding can be fun. I've had fun grinding in plenty of games, including Fallout 76. But there always comes a time when you ask yourself if you're still having fun, and if the answer to that question is no, then that's when the grinding becomes an issue. I personally find looter shooter games like Borderlands or The Division or Fallout 76 to have some of the worst grinds because it almost never stops. There's always going to be an item that's just marginally better, so now you've got to grind for that. In 76, you get a legendary weapon, Pog, that's sick. Okay, let's look at the traits. Damn, these suck. Now you got to try and reroll the traits on it. Oh, but to reroll the traits, you need a new currency, the legendary core. There's always some game mechanic that keeps you playing the gameplay loop. And normally, while this isn't a bad thing, if the gameplay loop is really boring, a player will more often than not just quit at that point. The grind of looter shooters is brutal. As an aside, to me, the best way to play Fallout 76 is to not participate in the daily wheel churning of the game, and instead enjoy the story, do some events when you feel like it, don't stress about perfect builds, and play it for the long haul. Don't be afraid to take a break when the content is stale, as future content updates will come soon enough. Enough of that little side talk, on to the last summary point. Lack of strong identity. I feel like all previous points come back and culminate to this final point. Fallout 76 lacks a strong identity. It wants to be your typical Fallout game, hence the name, but it also wants to be an online games as a service, and it's strange to a lot of longtime fans as we've never seen Fallout take on this form. It's this weird amalgamation of gaming genres. It's an online multiplayer action RPG, FPS, games as a service, co-op and PvP, open world, build sim sandbox, territory control, farming survival, grind-focused exploration game. The only thing it doesn't have is a class trinity. It's like if Fallout 4 had a baby with Borderlands, The Long Dark, Ark Survival, and heck, even No Man's Sky. Fallout 76 would pop out. Don't get me wrong either, by all means, it's good to be innovative and try new things, but there needs to be a focus. There should be that single thing that your game does extremely well, but I feel like Fallout 76 is missing that. It's a decent shooter, actually a great shooter compared to previous Fallouts, but poor compared to the likes of Doom or Titanfall 2. It's a bad MMO, though I wouldn't classify it as one, as it can't be massively multiplayer when there's only 24 people on a single map. It's a strange PvP game that uses PvP confirmation, so hardly anyone ever does it. It's a bad survival game now that they removed penalties for not drinking and eating. It's weird. Honestly, I say this as someone who enjoys Fallout 76 occasionally. It likely would have been better received if it didn't have the word Fallout in front of it. I feel like when you buy a Fallout title, you're expecting a few primary things: a story and choice-focused role-playing game. And while Fallout 76 fits nicely in the world of Fallout, it doesn't deliver on the stereotypical parts of Fallout that fans come to expect. And there you have it, 5 reasons why Fallout 76 isn't that good. Don't forget to comment, sub, and like. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.
We'd actually been flirting a little when she suddenly pulled a gun out and began yelling at me to hand my caps over. Now that I think of it though, she laughed when I threw her my money.